Hi, welcome to the channel. This is the Off the Docket podcast with Indigo and True Crime
Mandy,
Blonde.
True Crime Blonde. All right, and tonight we're talking about Jodi, Arias, and Travis Alexander. So we thought we would start with Travis's backstory and just some stuff that I think would make more sense as to why he might not have picked up on things like the way that he didn't pick up on things, unfortunately. But I think the biggest thing, I think one huge factor in all of this is the fact that Travis grew up before he became a Mormon and moved in with his grandmother. He grew up extremely neglected and around drug addicts. Like his parents were both addicts. They both had problems. They both had sketchy people in and out of the house. And he also has, I want to say, like 5 siblings? He has a bunch.
It was 7, actually. It was a lot of siblings, yes. I think
so they were like, so they're like super truncated, they one right after the other, and they were super close. But Travis, I think, was the eldest or second eldest, something like that. And I think that a lot of the reason he missed some of these behaviors is because I think he saw some of his mom and Jodi or something, because she was just so risky. And it's like so obvious to people looking in from the outside that she was doing like serious risky behavior. But I think that he was like under this like impression, maybe I can fix her, maybe I can enrich her life. Like he brought her into the Mormon faith. And it's like, those things are things I think he wanted to do with like his parents, or at least his mom anyway. And I think that he saw a lot of like the risky behavior as, oh, maybe she's on drugs. Who knows what she told him? Realistically, who knows what she truly told him about her life? And there were things that she did that were so not normal, but might have been normal to him, like, go ahead.
And it could have been the fact that being raised in the Mormon church, for the most part, I think he moved in with his paternal grandparents at 8 years old. So I think part of that too is like never getting to explore those sides of life. And Jodi kind of opened up.
Let him, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was also part of it. That was exciting and adventurous.
Yeah, and I think that I think he knew that like the Mormon faith was it for him. And I think he wanted to have adventure. And that's what she represented in the beginning. But toward the end, like the crawling through the doggy door, like that's so abnormal. And I think for any of us, just regular people who had a regular childhood, like not on either other scale kind of thing, we'd go, wow, someone's crawling in through my doggy door. But if you think about it, like if you grew up around drug addicted parents or a lot of drug use or just risky behavior in general, you're going to see that a lot. You know what I mean? Like you're going to see your parents lose their keys or just randos coming in your house that you don't know. And I think that a lot of that stuff, he was just like, yeah, it's fine. Or like her keying his car and then like escalating to cutting his tires. It's like, he probably saw that behavior in his parents, like when they would scorn people.
So he was
probably just, it was like a normality thing. And I wonder if it was like that familiarity that he got comfortable with. Like, I know how this feels. Like I can roll with this. And I just feel like in a lot of ways, he was almost at arrested development, because in the Mormon religion, there's so much tightness. And, I feel like he was raised after he moved out. I think he was like 7 to 10 when he moved in with his grandmother.
Yes. 8 years old, I believe.
Yeah. And I think that what it was like super risky behavior in like your really formative years, and then nothingness, like a barren wasteland almost, because it's just so normal. It's just so cookie cutter. It's just so everyday. And I think that he wanted some adventure. And then when it started getting dicey, he just didn't know how to differentiate like adventure, dicey, like what is danger? It was like, because I've known other people, and I think that you've been in the Mormon religion, right? Is that
Yes,
right?
I actually was a practicing Mormon, so I did get a little bit of that myself. For me, though, my experience was different than what most people describe it as. So it's like, I think it depends on the ward you're in. So for me, it was like, they were super non-judgmental, super friendly. They highly discourage like caffeine and tattoos and all of that, but and you can lose like your priesthood and your ability to go to the temple. So I think a lot of that was that for him. Like, he really wanted to stick to that and continue being some leader of the church. But for me, it was like not so much that, because you don't get priesthood as a woman in the church. And so you have the Relief Society and you have leadership there, but it can be like really, really conservative, really, you feel you're very discouraged to do certain things, and you're not really frowned on, but you are discouraged and told, like, well, then you can't do this leadership thing or this if you do this. So
one thing I do have a question about, because I don't know very much about Mormonism at all. He lost his like special underwear, and I know that sounds probably really weird, like, but what is that? Because that was like something that they stripped away from him, because she was literally going to the Mormon church with emails like, look at this, he's into little boys, and like things that he wasn't even into, like the things that I feel like she had on him, they were probably enough for them to have stripped that of him, but it was like she wanted to ruin him.
Right.
So what is that? What is the underwear thing?
So there are special undergarments that people wear to the temple. It's sort of like you have this kind of outfit you wear to the temple, and you don't want to wear any of your stuff that you've brought in, I guess, from the outside into the temple, because it's like a sacred place, and you can feel that when you enter the temple grounds. It's a very sacred place. So that's what that's about. And yes, you can lose that, unfortunately.
Well, what does that signify? Does it signify like where you stand in the church, or is it just like a piece that they could take away from him, kind of thing?
To my understanding and from my experience, anybody can get it, but then you lose your rights to enter the temple if you lose that.
Oh. So like they were saying, don't come to church, like you're not welcome here right now, when they took that, right?
Well, not the church necessarily. You can step into the church, but not the temple. And the temple is where the baptisms and everything take place. All of the
I got you.
I guess more ceremonious things take place. So if you lose that, it's like losing part of that, like a big spiritual part of that, if that makes sense.
Like a purity thing, almost.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I got you. And out of curiosity, like they started, I want to say like they began dating in like June, but they were like hot and heavy by November, and that was when she was baptized in. Doesn't it typically take longer to like get into the church? Like to where you can be baptized in as a member and those kind of things? Or is that typical where it's like you can kind of come in and just be a part of the church?
From my experience, it's actually, it can be quick as long as you prove, like you have a sort of interview process that you go through to prove that you do believe and understand what you're undertaking and what you're getting into. So it's not like you can just come in and just like suddenly be part of the church, but you like go through this interview process and talk to elders, and then you can be baptized pretty quickly though. Like if you really, and I think that's the thing. Like
she had to like smell like a bunch of people, right? Like this wasn't like him and him only. Like this was a lot of people. She was able to like get to believe this.
Absolutely. She was able to really pretend at the very least that she understood and knew what she was getting into. And for him too, he was doing a lot of things that were really, really discouraged in the church, you know? So like he knew, like he'd been baptized, he'd been raised that way, and he was also doing a lot of the really, you know, bad things, you know, the sinful
immoral things.
Yes.
Wow. It's just crazy to me that she was able to like, because I've heard like other friends of his say, you know, I picked up on the fact that she was weird. Like I picked up on the fact that she was a clinger, like all these things, but knowing that she had to like go in front of church elders, like who are pretty much, I feel in a way made to detect like lying and whatnot and like pick up on it. And they didn't pick up a thing. That's wild. And I'm sure his recommendation went a long way, but at the same time, like still, that's a lot. And like, just the weirdo behavior, like the biggest thing that stood out to me, I remember thinking, oh, well, he broke up with her and it wasn't, you know, and then she killed him. No, like he broke up with her. Then she moved back to California, then moved back there. Like, and that behavior, I just don't think he had like the the radar, I don't know what you call it, to just pick up on the fact that, well, this girl is really like, this is scary. I need to call the police. And I think that there's also a thing with men where they're like, I can't do this. It makes me a bitch if I call the law. And no, it doesn't. Like if your tires are being slashed, like if a girl's crawling through your doggy door, that's creepy. But if she goes from that to keying your car to slashing your tires, it's like an escalating behavior. Like, and you need to dip that in the bud, because like, even though he was bigger than her, I don't think he would have ever harmed her. And I also think that he was someone who, you can tell by all the pictures, all the things people say about him, that he really had like this zest for life. So I think she knew he wasn't like gonna just make it easy on her, for lack of a better term. And I think that that's the whole reason. Like, she got him in the shower, she got him where he was naked, like in a place where he would be the most vulnerable. And on top of that, neither of his roommates were there. So it's like, he didn't have a chance. It's like really sad if you think about it, like the way she cornered him in. And also, like, this was clearly premeditated. Like, she premeditated this so far out. And it's like, to think, like, she tries to spin it like she just turned it that weekend. No, you knew his people weren't there. Like, you knew almost everything that you needed to know, and you knew when to do it. And like, you even dyed your hair. Like, at least 48 hours of pre-planning.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, like, these are both 28-year-olds. They're nearly 30, behaving this way. And that's strange in itself. But I think a lot of it, going back to the Mormon church, is the way that she was able to kind of con people, is that she had that customer service experience. I mean, that's my theory, is the way she was raised, because she became a server.
Sales, too.
Yes, sales as well.
Sales. Mm-hmm.
And so she was able to con people in that way. She kind of picked up on what people would think is a lie and what isn't. But then with borderline personality disorder, which she was ultimately diagnosed with or assessed for, she had Travis as her favorite person. They typically have a favorite person, and that's someone they're just absolutely obsessed with, can't live without, or they feel like they can't live without, and that any separation feels like suffocation to them. And so here she is, she's 28, she has this favorite person, and he doesn't view her that way. He's kind of playing around. He's like, well, I have you, but I really want this other person. She has that favorite person, and he's like, well, you know, we have this open relationship right now. It's fun, but I'm actually pursuing this other girl. I'm about to take her to Cancun. That girl doesn't even want him. I believe Mimi is her name. Doesn't even want him, but Jodi, I believe, thinks to herself, well, I'm going to give this another try. I'm going to just push and show him, like, I really want him, and I love him, and I'm the one. And he doesn't say no, and that's the really strange thing, is he doesn't really discourage it. And I get, like, there might be this trauma bond there, or there might have been this trauma bond, but it's like he didn't say no. Like, he didn't call the police.
I think he really enjoyed her chasing him, because in the Mormon faith, it's the man that does all the chasing. So he wasn't used to that. So I think he really, like, it was almost like a dopamine hit.
I mean, I completely agree. Aside from the familiar part of that relationship, and just the fact that, like, guys are typically, they might feel ashamed if they call the police, or, you know, they feel like they can't do that, or they be viewed as weak. Aside from that, I think it really is that, you know, he loves the chase. You know, and then
it was intoxicating to him. Mm-hmm.
And then at one point, he had her, like, in a maid outfit cleaning for him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard about that part, and that was he didn't discourage that. So,
well, no, he also was paying her to do that. Like, he was like, because she couldn't make ends meet. And I think that he also was big on hard work. So he was like, you know, if you want to make extra money, I'll help you if you come clean my apartment, but you're going to wear this. So, I mean, it's hard to cut where he might have been encouraging all of this. And it's hard to know. So,
but then they got to a point where it's like, conveniently, her grandparents, one of their weapons was stolen. And so it was like, no, that's not a convenience. That's like, obviously this was premeditated. I mean,
Yeah.
even that part, this was premeditated when she decided, like, oh, well, he doesn't want me anyway. This is my favorite person. But now,
Yeah.
now he's off to
And
go.
I think that I want to say that the gun was like stolen the 25th of May, and this didn't happen till like the 10th of June or something, somewhere in that time frame. Like it was a full 2 weeks, and like I just don't buy. Like she's incredibly smart. I don't buy that she didn't ever like pick up the consequences, like understand what she was doing, and know what could come of it. Like why else dye your hair? Why else have like a getaway in Utah where you can be like, oh yeah, I got lost in the desert for 2 days. Like I
Yes.
really think she thought that Ryan guy was going to lie for her and say, oh no, she was at my place. And I just don't think he was down for that.
Well, and then the rental car situation where she told the person at the rental car place she doesn't want like a car that stands out. She doesn't want a flashy car, just like a white car. Mm-hmm. She knew exactly what she was doing.
She even took the plate off the front of it. Like I think it's California, you have to have front and back, and there you didn't. So she's like all automatically like taking it off. It's like it's so creepy, and it's like he didn't even know she was coming. You know what I mean? Like she just showed up at his house. But it goes to how much she planned, that his roommates were gone, that he was alone, that he was like a sitting duck. And it's so creepy because it's like with BPD, I do know, like I've seen it. I've seen the rejection half of it. I've seen what happens like when you reject someone with BPD, and it's a constant escalation, and it's slow, but it does escalate nonetheless until it gets to a point where they can't escalate anymore. And it's like, in this case, she took it all the way to the end. Like she literally escalated it till there was no further escalation. Like can't do anything more than that. And then like in the trial, the way that she tried to paint him as such a terrible person, like there's one thing in saying he was a horrible boyfriend. People aren't going to fight you on that, but like he beat her, according to her. He was a pedophile. Like those things are not normal. And it's like, it was almost like to shame him after his death to the Mormon church. Like these were things that she knew they would look at and like think, oh yeah, Travis was a bad guy. And I don't think he was. I think that he was a shitty boyfriend. But I think that most men that age are. Like, I just don't think guys that young really process it the same. And I think they usually are. And I think that she had worn the pants in a lot of relationships before this. I think it was really clear.
What stood out to me was the fact that she waited until the news came out that he was missing before she ever said, well, I'll help with that. And then she starts out on this narrative that he's a good guy. He's this comedian and this philosopher and this great guy. And then it switches once it's discovered she actually, ended his life. And suddenly he's this bad, abusive guy. Like he's this violent guy. Mm-hmm. And so that was interesting.
I mean, and she even did that with, she even changed the narrative with like his friends, Sky and I can't remember, Chris Hughes. Like they were huge in the, like the trial part, and they talked about how they like went to take him into a room and were like, this is not normal. This chick is not normal. And like he opens the door and she like falls in. She's listening so hard. Like, and she even tried to like smear him to them after this. And he's like, oh no, she's a good person. She's not like, that was the thing that like, I felt so bad for him for, because I think typically it's switched, and it's a girlfriend who's like, oh, he's so good. Don't hate him because of that. And it's like, in this case, it was a man like being like, no, she's good. I really like her. And it's like, holy shit. Like she was doing it to everybody in his life. Like I can't even imagine what kind of like turmoil she would have caused had he let her like near his family. Like I can't even imagine it.
What confuses me about that, though, is that he had kind of been smearing her to all of his friends and family before. So I feel like there's almost this part that's being unspoken where, I mean, of course, she is a crazy girlfriend, but he's like making sure everybody thinks that preemptively. Like he's been telling people she's crazy, she's toxic, but then like sleeping with her and not discouraging that aspect. So I kind of wonder if he like planted that seed beforehand.
I definitely think that she was like, in his eyes, good enough to sleep with, but not date. And I think that that's where everything got really dicey, where she was like, oh man, I'm going to marry this dude. And he just didn't feel that way. I don't think there was any point where he did. I don't know. I don't think he was encouraging that they were going to get married at any point. I don't know. I just feel like he wasn't discouraging it, but at the same time, he wasn't letting her know like what was really up. And like, that's really important. And a lot of times guys think, you know, I don't have to tell her. It's cool. Like, she'll get the hint.
Right.
Like, no, some chicks don't get the hint. Like, they don't. And then you put down this hard boundary with someone like that, who, especially people with, I hate to like trash BPD. I really do. But I have like real world experience with it. And like, when you put a hard line boundary down with anyone who has that, in my experience, man, it just doesn't go well. Like, it's, you might as well say to them, you're never going to see me again. I hate you. You are terrible. And it's like, it's not necessarily the words you say. You can say, hey, this just isn't working for me right now. But they internalize it as they're not worthy. They're not good enough. They're not blah, blah. And then it starts to come back on you. Well, I'm good enough for him. I'm way better than he is. And it's like, I think that was like the racing thoughts she was dealing with were, this fucking guy from like Utah or I think this was Arizona. Arizona is like going to tell me that I'm not good enough. And I think that's where it got. And it was like at a fever pitch with her because literally you stole from your grandparents. Like, how crappy do you have to be to like steal from grandma and grandpa? Like, they're gone. Like, and think it's not going to be traced back to you. Like, come on. Like, I just don't buy that. Like, there were things she was incredibly smart about. You know, a 25 is an incredibly common weapon. You know, it is. But at the same time, like the fact that it was stolen from them 2 weeks prior, like anybody that looks in that. And I think a lot of the police work was good. I also think some of it was terribly shoddy. Like, they weren't even looking in her direction.
Right. Well, and I think also going back to how she was that borderline personality disorder, like not all people with that diagnosis are going to do what she did, but they are at the same time, that rejection gives them that feeling like it's an emotional third degree burn is how it's described in those patients. And so it's very fierce. As you said, it's like even a soft boundary, even a soft, like, maybe not now, not that, not yet, that's not for me, feels like you said, like you might as well say, I hate you. You suck. You're never going to see me. Like,
yeah,
it's extreme to them and it's severe. And so it probably created that rage in her. But at the same time, it's like he had been smearing her and toying with her. And like, he even got jealous at one point, I believe. He said, like, we're going to have this open relationship. And she finally is like, well, I'm going to pursue one of your coworkers with this prepaid legal insurance company. And that doesn't work out, but he gets jealous of that, which was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because that kind of is, it's like a mixed signal. Like, yes, go for it. No, wait, don't.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's like, let me throw you, almost like fishing. Like, let me throw you out in the water and then reel you back in when I feel like it. And I think that he had been playing with her. I mean, I think that's so apparent that he was playing with her emotions through the whole thing. But I just think that she was someone who, with the context of BPD, she felt everything at an 11 already. So if you're playing with someone and you're giving them like love bombing, for instance, they're feeling it at an 11, even if you're putting it out at a 5. And I think that like it's almost like this, they came from different worlds kind of thing, because, he was all about the church. He had been dating church girls. He had been doing all this. And
his friends basically said, there's this chick, you need to look at her because she's not good news. She's bad for him, yada, yada. And they waited for her to fly to them. Like, they didn't send anybody out there to get her for questioning. They didn't send like Cali police to talk to her, nothing. And it's like, I wonder, a lot of that was the brutality so high in what happened to him that they were just like, a chick couldn't do this. Like, she's small. No. And it's dismissive. Also, like, I've seen the crime scene footage, unfortunately, like the photos, the walkthrough, everything. And it's like, it is so brutal and it is so bad that I get it in a way. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, they told you who it was from like jump. You could have done nothing else.
There was an almost overwhelming amount of evidence too. So it's almost like, how could they not realize it was her? You know, like who else keeps this weapon that just happens to have also been stolen from her grandparents' house? I mean, very similar weapons, conveniently.
I do wonder if too they were thrown off at all, because they said they found hair there. And it was long brown hair. I wonder if they were thrown off at all because all of his friends were like, oh, she's a blonde. Yeah, she's this beautiful blonde. That could be it, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just weird. It was always weird to me that they didn't straight go for her, that they didn't make it like clear to her this was very serious. Like, they almost played a game with her too. And it's like, it's kind of sad that seems to be a running trend in her life.
Yes, and didn't he have a roommate as well? And so maybe
Yeah, he had two.
Oh, okay, so did they question? Because I don't remember hearing much about that part. Did they question those two?
Yeah, they questioned them both, and one of them, I want to say, came back and let the friends in that were there to like see Travis. Like, I think he came in and like he had been there like for a day or so, and like they had like the way that the house was set up was like, it's like they're very common out there. Like, it's a Spanish design. You walk in and you have this huge open space kitchen. And then like the roommate, I want to say, was on the first floor. And then they had a roommate in the basement. And then you went upstairs and Travis had this huge, like almost like L-shaped bedroom. Like, you had to go down a hallway that went by his walk-in closet, and then over to the right was the bathroom, and then there was the bedroom, and he was in the bathroom. But like, can you imagine the smell? Like, I would get it. Right? So you're like, oh, did he like leave a pizza in there? But like, his dog was running around. Like, there are all these like little clues that would say, hey, something's not right. Like, why did his roommate not call before? To me, that's kind of one of those things. Like, yeah, you go up and you knock on your roommate's door and it's locked. Well, you think he's gone to Cancun. I mean, maybe that's it. You know, maybe they were just like, he's in Cancun. We'll talk to him about the smell later.
It's very bizarre how like he wasn't checked on for like days. I mean, like you said, the smell alone would be just overwhelming, I would think.
Horrible. Yeah. Yeah. It would be because his body had like begun to decompose. Like, badly.
Well, and she didn't use bleach. She didn't seem to use bleach or anything. But the thing that is also interesting to me is that she went for him and not for Mimi or these other girls that he was talking to. And normally I would think that, you know, even if she was in some borderline personality disorder rage, she might go for the women and kind of get rid of competition in a way. So that was kind of fascinating to me. She didn't decide to go for Mimi.
Yeah, I think that her rage was centered on him. I think that every time he played a game with her, every time he let her in and they had sex and he was like, oh, it's just one more time, one more thing, she was like, this is another thing. Like, think about it like a tool belt. This is another tool I'm putting into my belt to get me to the level of crazy it takes to kill you. And as just horrible as that sounds, I think that at all times she was laser focused on him. I don't think there was ever a point where anyone else mattered. And you were saying something about, I think you know more about the emails than I do, because I don't remember that, but refresh me.
So there were times that he had these women emailing and texting him, and she would reply something along the lines of, like, they would ask where he's at or what he's up to, and she would reply back on his behalf saying something along the lines of sleeping with Jodi, about to cuddle with Jodi, going to bed with Jodi, making sure they know that she's there with him and that he has.
Do you think he was aware of it? Do you think he was like kind of almost like proud of it? Like, oh, well, they see him a hot commodity or whatever? Or do you think that it was just solely like she was doing it on her own?
I think it definitely played into everything he wanted to spin there, where like he had that chase that he loved and that kind of like, oh, these girls are fighting over me. But at the same time, he then also got to turn around and tell these girls, look, Jodi's crazy, and this is a confirmation of that. But at the same time, it was like, she mirrors people, and that's so evident. And people with borderline personality disorder do. They mirror people. And you can see that in tons of the investigation footage where if someone starts to count, she starts to count. If they do this kind of formal attitude, she has this formal attitude in the way she words things. Her whole demeanor is formal. And if it's casual, she's casual. And so she does this, but I wonder if there's some aspect of her behavior she mirrored from Travis, where she was like, she wanted to toy around with him as well and toy around with these girls, and she had maybe similar behaviors to him. And so
I definitely think that they were both players. I think that she played the field way before he came along. And I think when she got with him, it was one of those things I've seen it happen in real life to chicks or to dudes for that matter. Like where you're going out and you're the player and then you get played and you hate the game, you hate the player, not the game. You know what I mean? And it's like they were playing the same game with each other, but I think he was just better at it. Like, I think she couldn't make him jealous. I think that at the end, I think he was completely attached emotionally, and she was like throwing all these things at him to make him jealous, spin out, but he was never that person. He was never going to be that person. I think if he had hit her, it would have given her everything she wanted. If he had hit her, if he had, actually done something sexually like that he shouldn't have, she would have loved it. She would have relished it, but he didn't. And I think that it really just fucked with her that she couldn't corrupt him further than she already had. Like, I think that losing his religion wasn't enough. It was like, I'm going to ruin you professionally. I'm going to ruin your religion for you. Like, she wanted him to end up homeless on the street, like drug addicted, like horrible. And it's so apparent. And it's like, I think because she couldn't get that outcome, she made that outcome. You know what I mean? Like, she couldn't get it like naturally, so she made it.
Well, there was also this part of things where she knew he was not being as committed to his faith as he was pretending to all these other people he was, and smearing her, like just completely telling people she was this crazy, awful person. And I think that very much contributed to her wanting to destroy him, because she knew like there's only a few ways this could end. It's either he becomes submissive and becomes like this man she wants him to be and continues to play along with things the way that she has enjoyed, but that would mean
her rules,
right. But that would mean he abandons his faith, because Mormonism, they don't tell men to be the submissive ones. No. Or he would go with this other woman, and she would keep having to like push and climb through this dog door, and it would just maybe she would ultimately end up ending one of the women's lives. And so I think she just got to this point where she's like, I kept pushing, it's still not working, and I have to do this. And then you see her almost look for some other attachment, because people with borderline personality disorder, they have to have someone that they kind of become. And so it becomes like the circus. You see her like doing handstands and doing things, but then also mirroring people. And it's like she's looking for this other thing she wants to do.
I had a thought of that. I had a different thought on that. I was curious what you thought. I feel like there was an escalation with her behavior. And obviously, like, with that escalation, her mental health is going down. I was wondering when I saw that, like, where she's singing, she's doing all this shit. Like, do you think he mentally, or maybe the murder itself mentally broke her? Like, because she has reverted almost to like a child. Like, because normal people know not to go in there and do like a handstand. Like, they know better. Like, it's not something anyone would do. And she's just doing it so freely. And I don't know if it's like abandoning social norms or if it's literally just a breakdown of the psyche, like where she was like, there are so many versions of Jodi. It's like, but on the one version, if you believe that she got with him, thought they were going to get married, thought they were going to have a bunch of kids, had converted to the Mormon faith, believed it wholeheartedly, like if you buy what she's selling and you're like, okay, I believe this, I believe that she believed this, blah, 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 then yeah, that would have completely broken her. I believe it would have.
Yes.
But is that who she really was? Because there are so many layers there where she could be someone different.
So it's almost as if she had this idea of what she thought her life was going to be, and as soon as she ended Travis's life, maybe it did break her in a way, but it also kind of activated, for lack of a better word, this part of her that's part of borderline personality disorder, where she is childlike. She does regress, and she feels finally, I guess, safe in a way to go into that regress state, because she went, like, I've got to be this adult, and now I don't really have to be that. I'm in trouble already. I'm, maybe
it was like the inevitable, because she had planned this so thoroughly. Maybe being in the investigation room was like, oh, I'm fucked. I know where I am. I know where I'm going. Like, I know what's going to happen. And it did feel safe in a way, as weird as that may sound.
Yeah, it could have been very comforting for her. And then we see this part where she gets in this kind of cat and mouse chase with this prosecutor that's very aggressive, very assertive. And a lot of people, of course, cheered him on because he's like calling her out. He's very confrontational, but she is enjoying every minute of it. And that was interesting and such a turn from all of the mirroring she had done. In a way, I mean, she's still like playing along with them, almost in a mirroring way, but she's enjoying the whole thing, not answering his questions, dodging everything. And I think that that was like a child's play that was comforting to her, and that's why she enjoyed it so much. So I can definitely see that.
I see that too. It's almost like when you think you're getting one over on your dad. Like the way that they play with each other on the stand, it's like a daughter who has a bad attitude talking to their parent, and like he plays into her game too. You notice, like he blows it up like a dad would, and it's like, I want to say that he got sanctioned on his license for that case, like something with his license like taken away or something. And there was another question I had for you, as far as like, because you watched the interrogation recently. What did you think of the other stories that she told, and like how farcical they were? To me, that was like another sign she had regressed, because it's like, these are stories a kid would tell. Like, come on, ninjas, you know what I mean?
I think she wanted to sound as sane, sort of like this man had told everybody she was crazy. And so now she thought, well, if he told people I was crazy, and that narrative is already out there, and these people think I'm crazy, his friends and his family, maybe if I really lean into the crazy part, I can get away with this. Maybe I won't get as many years. Maybe I won't get a harsher punishment. And I think that was a manipulative thing on her part. And going back to the prosecutor, he was, I believe it's called debarred because of that case, but it's because he did something unethical. He was sleeping with someone who is part of the media. He was telling this media member a part of the case. So while there was like an appeal, Jodi tried to appeal because of the prosecutor's aggressiveness of allegedly making her uncomfortable and making it hard for her to answer things. That actually brought to light that he was doing unethical things, and that was ultimately how he got debarred, I believe it is.
Yeah. Okay. See, I thought he had actually done something unethical with her, but and the whole, and like watching it back, like I watched it a couple years ago when I covered this case, like watching the footage from the trial back, it's heartbreaking to like watch his family and watch even his friends. It's very like clear this guy was so loved, but you look around the courtroom, like one thing that stood out so hard to me is like the courtroom is filled, and it's filled with people for him. Like no one's there for her mom, and I think her grandma, and that was it. And I do wonder if she had like some deep-seated trauma with like her dad in some way. Well, it doesn't have to be anything, what's the word? Devious. It could have been normal, like he was hard on her when she was a kid, or he was hard when she was an adolescent. Like the person in my life who has BBD, there was nothing deviant about like anything that happened with her dad, but she has daddy trauma, and it's like she has it from believing that situations were so much worse, and like she makes them in her head worse than they were when she was a kid. And it's like, I do wonder about that, because he didn't show up, he wasn't there, kind of like just threw his hands up and was like, wow, and see what happens to her. And I just wonder, you hear her mom in the media talk, And she talks about, the worst thing Jodi really ever did was like grow a pot plant. And it's like, come on, there has to be like something in her childhood, something that like hinted to this, because like it's not something that like, if you want to look at it, the bullet did not kill him. And I think it was post-mortem anyway. So she went for a much blunter instrument of killing him from the jump. Like something in her was extremely violent. Like whatever it was extremely violent, because, you had stolen the gun. You even fire around. And it's like, part of me wonders, was she like playing with him after he passed? Like, what were you doing? Like, because realistically, no one knows how long she was there. No one knows if she stayed an hour after she killed him, or if she, got out of there right away, or what she did. And it's like, no, I don't think anyone ever will know. I don't think she'll ever tell the truth about the matter. I don't think she'll ever really cop to what she did. And it's like, there are so many little like side quests in that. It's like, there's blood in the walk-in closet, and how I explained like bedrooms here, there's blood all over the bedroom. It's like, how far did this crime go? Because they believe that what happened was he basically got out of the shower and he had these stab wounds and wound to his neck, and like he coughed up some blood into the sink and then walked and tried to like get to the door to exit.
Yeah, tried to escape.
Like, what were you doing in that time? And was that as far as he went and you dragged him back? Like, what were you doing? Like, to me, that's really it. And like, what was with the staging? Like, she cleaned no blood, nothing, but she staged him, put him in the shower, and left the shower running, which theoretically would say she was trying to like get her DNA off of him.
Right.
Clean the scene in some way. And it's like, why do all that if everything is the way it is? It's like some things are super planned and super controlled, and then some things are just very chaotic. And you can tell, like, she's a serial killer. It's obviously not something she's practiced, but it's also one of those things where it's just like, some of the things were so methodical that it's just like, it's kind of scary what she could have done if she had taken it further, because this was controlled in ways that you see in like older killers who've killed more than once, things like that. Like, she had more than one mode to kill him. Like, she had more than one weapon. So it's like, it really makes you think, like, if this girl really been sitting in her room for like a month, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it this way, and I'm gonna make sure I got it back up, and I'm gonna make sure I got it back up to this, and I'm gonna dye my hair. I mean, there's just so much thought to be put into it. And it's like, I don't know if you should receive extra punishment for like that much premeditation of a crime. You know what I mean? Like, premeditation can go 2 minutes before. You can literally say, I'm gonna kill you.
Yes.
And you premeditated that murder. But it's like, it makes you think about it, because like, there are people who are doing murder one because of that. They said, I'm gonna kill you, and they did. And then there are people like her who literally planned for a month or more.
So about her family, from what I had heard, like, her father and her mother were still being supportive, even though she had all these narratives that they were abusive. And I think, again, it goes back to her diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, because it was like any little thing they did was like the sense of abandonment for her. It was like severe and extreme, and rejection to her. I think that she did have this aspect of abandonment, because typically people with BPD do. And I just think that was a very fair diagnosis. And now you were also talking about people who showed up for her and didn't, and there really wasn't a lot of people there, but at the same time, there was someone, I believe, I couldn't tell if she was there for her or not, but it was like a cellmate she'd had that she had become really close with and was there to support her. And she'd actually like married these two women in this county jail, I believe it was, or while in prison. She was a cellmate with her.
Oh, wow.
So I believe she showed up for her, and even eventually took over Jodi's social media and other accounts to kind of like stand up for her.
Mm-hmm.
But that was
I've heard about that, of her like and like her selling her artwork and whatnot. Like I've heard about her doing that since she's been in it. I didn't know about the soulmate. I just hadn't heard about it, but I know, I don't know. I have a very iffy sense. Like I don't really think that, I forget what the law is called. It literally just went on my head, but like when you can profit from a crime, I don't think you should be able to profit from a crime. And I don't really think you should be able to make like real world money in jail. Like with her paintings, I get it. Like there are people who bought paintings from like John Wayne Gacy. Like he did the same thing.
Yes.
But I don't know. It just gives me like an icky feeling. And also to me, like the comparison with her and like Casey Anthony, they're so similar. They're so similar. Even in like the stories they made up to like make up for what they did, it's so similar to me. And it's like, it's crazy to me that Casey Anthony actually got off and Jodi didn't.
Right.
And in comparison, like Casey's victim was so much more innocent, so much, I don't want to say more deserving of justice because no one is, but like a kid, like
Exactly.
it still blows my mind that she's able to make money off her crime, do all this stuff, and she can't be tried again because of double jeopardy. It's just insane.
It's sort of like once you've ended someone's life, you shouldn't be able to profit out that crime. I mean, I know that there are certain instances where people feel like that's justified, but I think, like if that is what you've been found guilty of,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be able to profit off your crimes. Now, do you think that her sentencing was it was too lenient, you believe, correct?
I don't know. I do believe in a way, yes, because she literally went on national television like, I'll die for it. I don't care. Like they can kill me, and they'll kill me if they give me life. And it's like, what do you expect here? Like, do you expect you're getting it 20 years? No, you're not. Like you're not. Like this wasn't a game. It wasn't something that you accidentally did. Like it's very clear how much you thought about it. You obviously thought about this being the case at the end of the day, and you still went through with it. And it's like knowing you're in a death penalty state, like all these things she knew like ahead of time. She 100% knew Arizona was a death penalty state and they weren't light on this kind of stuff. And she did it anyway. And it's like, so yeah, in a way I think it is light because I see kind of the life she lives. Like there's so many people who put out Jodi news that I don't feel like she is hurting in any way. Like,
Yes.
there are people who go to prison and they are 100% punished for their crime, and it's obvious. But in her case, it's almost like she thrives there. Like she's just doing fine, and it's like I can only imagine if that was my family member, how I would feel about seeing her just be fine the way she is. And it's like it would eat me alive. And I do think that his faith played into it because, they have to consult like the family when they make a plea deal. So I think that their faith went into it. And I think that family spared her. I think that their opinion was very held high. And I think that some of them didn't want her to live. But I think that in the end, his faith, literally the thing he had tried to like introduce her to and like bring her closer to God and whatnot. Like, I think it's something that's her at the end.
Well, in the way that she played up the entire, if you let me live, I will do some good with it. I promise to do good. I want to do all this good. And it was like it was just more manipulation,
And the way that she brought out the Survivor t-shirt at the very end of the trial, that was so shitty. Like, I would have wanted to deck her if I was his sister. Like, I would have wanted to punch her down.
They did.
I cannot imagine. Yeah. Like, I think they were, like, being held back. But, like, I can't even imagine. Like, think about it. You've like, allowed this to happen. You've been like, yeah, give her life, whatever. And you're, like, dealing with it. And she comes out like, yeah, you abuse me, and I'm going to help abuse victims while I'm in here. Like, please.
Right. It was crazy how that went. So my closing thoughts are that I believe Jodi did, of course, plan this all out. I don't know if she really intended fully to go through with it or if there was any indecisiveness in the end there. If she didn't know for sure if she was going to go through it with it, thought like she would sleep with them, and then maybe he said something that indicated, no, really, I'm committed to Mimi or someone else. And she said, fine, I'll go through with it then. And then went through with it and then realized, well, I'm too far in now, and that BPD rage kicked in, and she sort of just like this other part of her brain took over, and so
I think it was like a switch flip, to be honest. Like, I think that it was like either you say I'm the best thing ever or I'm going to kill you. Like, I think there was no in between. And I think that it happened in a second. And in that part, I think that's the only part she didn't plan. I think that she ended up going for him in a moment that wasn't planned, if that makes sense.
Yes. So I think that, I mean, I agree. I don't think her punishment was necessarily fair. I think it was a little lenient. I think she was given way too much time and ways to further manipulate people and hurt people. But that is all of my thoughts on this case. And is there anything you would like to add?
Just that we all have shitty boyfriends. We just don't get to kill them. So that's it.
We just have to leave.
Right.
Well, then that is it. Thank you for watching. This is the new Off the Docket podcast. And Mandy,
Good night.
you did a great job. Good night.